All right, I would like to call the Madison Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. So as you see, Seth is joining us tonight from the road, so I am doing my best to fill his shoes this evening, so bear with me, everyone, as we go through this. The first item on our agenda is our school community session, and I will read aloud that we do welcome public comment at our meetings, both in person and on Zoom. We ask that when you're speaking, you state your name and your address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes in order to ensure that everyone has a chance to speak. We'll let you know when your time is up. We're happy to hear from our community, but at a business meeting such as tonight, it should not be expected that the board or administration will respond. If necessary, the community member will be contacted for follow-up. And if you're joining us tonight via Zoom, we ask that you raise your hand and you'll be called upon. Do we have anyone in person who'd like to speak this evening? Do we have anyone on Zoom who would like to speak this evening? All right, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our Board of Education Student Representatives Report. We have Eli and we have Brooke here tonight. What do you have to share with us?
So last Wednesday, we had a school-wide assembly for the No Hate Tour, which is there's a group of guys who are BMX riders, and I think they're like Olympic level, some of them, they're really good. And they also tied in like bullying prevention messages as well. There's a ton of student engagement, everyone loved it. I mean, everyone's on the edge of their seats. It was super cool. The only like downside of it was that the bullying prevention aspect of it really didn't stick with a lot of students because they were just so excited with all like the flips and stuff that, you know, when it got down to the more serious topics, no one was really quite zoned in for that kind of aspect for it. Yesterday and today we had the PSATs, and this was the first time that they were online. And thankfully the technology all worked really well. Everyone was able to get the PSAT on their Chromebook and finish it, and the Wi-Fi stayed on, everything, the internet didn't break down. There's some mixed reviews on having it on the school day instead of on a Saturday because everyone was kind of drained for the rest of the school day. But I mean, I personally thought it was much better during the school day because it felt like just like a normal day at school, just taking a longer test. And we got our Saturday for homecoming to be all freed up, so you can just like stay excited for the night ahead. Speaking of, homecoming is this Saturday. It should be a very exciting event. It always is. I'll definitely be there, and we're hoping that the attendance will be high this year. Additionally, we just passed the midpoint of trimester 1, so all the progress reports have been finalized.
And tomorrow is parent-teacher conferences, which is very exciting for us because that means we have a half day. Financial aid night is Wednesday, October 25th in the Hand Dining and Assembly Hall at 6 p.m. And fall sports seasons are winding down, which means it's time for playoffs. And a note is that the attendance has been great at all the fall sports, but we're hoping to have even more attendance going into playoffs. And that's it.
So Eli,
Yeah,
tell me you're not sorry to miss the PSATs.
no, I mean, that's right. I wanted to take another standardized test. I'm not gone.
For the remaining fall sports games, are there announcements in the school about what games are happening when, so the students know in terms of like increasing attendance? How do students know what's happening when?
Yeah, most of the time. So for most sports teams, I know I'm on the boys soccer team. A lot of the teams have social media accounts. So other kids will follow the accounts and they'll look on social media and we'll see the times of the games. And then I know some of my teachers they'll have whiteboards in the room and they'll say, write down your game, write down the time and the locations. And so it's hard to avoid it. You're gonna see it somewhere for a lot of the teams.
Great.
And how many teams? Quite a few teams are going to the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how many fall sports we have, but I know it's a bunch.
I know the field hockey girls are
Yeah, you really.
undefeated. And I think football, right?
Yeah, football should be on its way to.
How's soccer,
We're doing good.
right?
We'll make SECs and then states, hopefully go far, so it's going well.
That's good. What else? Volleyball?
Congratulations, Eli.
Oh, thank you.
You got the goal in soccer. Was that you?
Yeah, I've scored 3 goals this season, so I had 0 last year, so
So that's
it's an
great.
improvement.
Yeah, well, you
Great.
Will you play in college or
No,
maybe with a?
yeah, maybe intramural.
Yeah, like a club team,
And Brooke, you play a winter sport?
I do gymnastics.
yeah, and how they.
They win this championship
Yeah,
every year.
every year.
No pressure.
Yeah, no. So a bunch of teams ago, that's great.
That's exciting. Any other comments from board members online? Questions for student representatives?
I was just congratulating Eli because he was in Zippo 6 and they said that Eli Ackerman scored the lone goal.
Ooh,
Didn't know that.
wow, in the paper, see,
Way to go.
all right, congratulations.
Super. All right.
Brooke, get ready for the big fanfare when it's your season.
Yeah, yeah, we'll embarrass you, for sure.
Yeah, we will.
Yep. We can do that. Oh, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, as always.
Thank you.
Have fun
Thank you.
at home.
Yeah, have a great time.
Or people allowed to come and just check it out.
No.
No, Marion wants to go. She wants to go.
I went to all the prods when I was still in high school.
We could chaperone.
Yeah, I like
There
there
you
you
go.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda is superintendent's report.
Yes, so we have a exciting, lengthy in terms of number of slides, but I know they're gonna go through it quickly, but just a exciting update on the new school project. And so Adam Levitas from Colliers is with us. I know we have some of our other folks on the line potentially, but we don't have
Justin's not on? Okay, well,
excited to
I'll join the
show the presentation. I know Bill McMinn is on.
Oh, yeah. you wanna-
I lied to you, it's not connected correctly. So if you look, join me,
Yeah, let me join it. So, hi, Adam Levitas with College Project Leaders. Justin Hopkins with TechDon should be joining here momentarily. I know he had other evening meetings this night, so he might have gotten caught up in the prior meeting, but what I'll do is I can start, then when he joins, he can quickly take over. So basically, the purpose of this recap is to serve as a preamble to the next meeting. At the next meeting, next time we join you in November, the intent is to get the formal sign off from this group for our phase 2 package. You recall, not too long ago, we came in on our phase 1 early procurement package to buy some of the mechanical components, electrical components, et cetera, early. So this phase now is phase 2. This is the main construction package. It's building, it's the site, it's all the major meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the building that will go out to bid to ultimately go and build the school. There'll be 2 more packages thereafter for furniture and fixtures and IT and AV equipment, as well as for the playgrounds. But as I mentioned, this is the larger package. Justin said he's jumping on shortly, so I'll skip to the end here and talk about some of the financial elements that aren't in the presentation. If you recall, there have been a number of times where the project has come back to the Board of Education to review the ed specs and sort of the charge to the building in terms of scope and square footage and things of that nature. This last round for our construction document phase, we did our final estimate process, went through the reconciliation. And ultimately, estimated reconciliation came in just under $2 million over the construction budget. However, at the last school building committee meeting, they reviewed the value engineering log developed by the design team in concert with the school building committee and ultimately accepted enough value engineering that we're back within budget on the construction element. There was no changes to anything programmatic, nothing requested as part of the ed specs or anything of that nature. So far as we're concerned, the last time that we spoke about the alternates to the ed specs, we're still in that same plan moving forward with the same scope items. So all is good on that front.
So the $2 million that you were under. We're not under anyone.
The 2 million that the estimate suggested was more costly than the budget. The school building committee took value engineering items, simpler finishes, some reduction in glazing and glass and that kind of thing to reduce the estimated cost to be in line with the current project budget. And I see Justin's on there, so my job of stalling has worked out well. Hi, Justin.
Hi, everyone. My terrible apologies for being late. Dr. Cook, you can blame Dr. Solon for that.
So Justin, I was just
Sure.
reading the budget consideration. So if you want to go through the presentation, that'd be great.
Sure. I will share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Well, thank you once again, Justin Hopkins, Associate Principal and Project Manager for Tecton Architects. We have a fairly brief presentation to go through just to give you an update of where we are. Project recap. We'll go over site development, which I believe most of you are familiar with, as well as the building. And then we'll kind of wrap up with where we are for construction document, quality control, and next steps. It sounded like Adam was kind of going through our value management exercises. So you've probably seen these before. Our design phase schedule, where basically at the end, we've gone through schematic design, design development, and construction documentation. We're at the point where we have a reconciled estimate. We're going through some of the final review comments, as well as kind of circulating things with the fire marshal, building official, etc., all in preparation for going to the State Office of Grants Administration for a pre-bid conformance review. So this has always been a slide that we've had the critical aspects of the project, making sure that we have a project that's responsible, functional, forward-thinking, has an ability for community use, and has a site design that is both functional, educationally, and technically. So, and we have gone through all of the inland wetlands review, P&Z review, health department review, and have satisfied all of the technical components at this point. So we're able to sit here today and say we have a building and a site that conforms to all of the requirements for development. So since we came on in summer of 2022, we've held series of working group meetings with a cross section of administrators and faculty members. We've had a number of community touch points. We've had over 30 school building committee meetings, as well as our commissioning meetings, utility company meetings, planning and zoning, and state meetings. We've had community surveys, we've had community workshops, and my favorite part of these processes are the student activity workbooks, where you get to see what is in the creative minds of your youngest learners. So I wish we could have a heated pool and a waterfall in every single one of our projects, but it's just great to see some of the things that come out of their imaginations. So this is kind of a word diagram from our feedback, focusing on safety, sustainability, 21st century learning, adaptability, flexibility, all those things that kind of go into what we imagine to be a 21st century learning environment. So we've also gone through some thematic work with some of our interiors, kind of capitalizing on some of the context of Madison, from the greenway and to the dunes, to the shore and the water, and some of that we've used as inspiration from some of our interior finishes and development. So as a reminder of where we are on the site, we have Mungertown Road to the left, north is to the top of the screen. The site slopes from west to east, or from Mungertown down to the bottom of the hill. Our areas for parent pickup and drop off are identified in A, bus pickup and drop off to the north of the site. We, as part of the conversation with the community, the goal was to provide everything, all the queuing for both parents and buses off street within the parking apparatus, so that we're not providing a burden on Mungertown. Areas for visitor parking close to the main entry, our staff parking to the south of the site. We do have our green playfields highlighted in around F, a pollinator pathway that goes along the perimeter near the wetland edge. We have our loading and utility areas highlighted in I, discreetly tucked away and out of the way, so not very ostentatious. And also development of school garden and some of our playscapes to the east. Our pre-K and K playscape is closer to that learning community towards the west. We had a lot of discussions through all of these working sessions to make sure that we are providing an appropriate landscape buffer. We have a berm at this area, as well as multiple plantings to provide safety for our pre-K and K students that are out in those play areas. From building development, a two-story building, both stories are accessible at grade. So we have a main level and a lower level, and those are stacked according to the axonometric to the right. Main level, we have our areas, our administrative wing in green, faculty planning, faculty workshop in green as well. Upon main entry, we have our media center, our STEAM room, our visual arts room, and our music room. So really, this concept of a main street where all of our public curriculum components are right there at the entrance to the building, also close to our grade level learning communities. At this level, we do have our pre-K and K. We have our open courtyard that is accessible off of our K wing, as well as the media center. And we have our grades 1 and 2 at this level as well. So from a diagrammatic standpoint, as I mentioned, our main street, very clear circulation. It's very important for a building of this size with this size of people. In other words, our youngest learners, that we have clarity of circulation. So at any point that you're within the building, you know where you are, you can see where you're going, and everything is familiar through this circulation clarity. At every intersection, we want to provide views to nature. And at critical intersections, we want to provide the opportunity for breakout spaces to provide that flexibility of curriculum opportunity, whether it's small group or peer-to-peer learning. We want to make sure that we have built in those flexibility, as well as some of our core curriculum, our double height spaces, the cafeteria and gymnasium, to be able to have, those are internal to the overall building footprint. So making sure that we are accessing it visually and are constantly aware of these major programmatic spaces as we circulate around the building. Our lower level consists of our gymnasium, and our cafeteria and kitchen, as well as our upper elementary learning communities. At each learning community, we have built in our resource rooms and special education. So those are closest to our classrooms proper in order for us to support those either push in, pull out resource. So very similar building diagram. We will note for our interior curriculum spaces of the gymnasium, we're providing natural light through skylights. For our cafeteria and our media center, we have a clear story that is providing some natural light So in both locations, we're still bringing natural light from above in. So section perspective of our core spaces, starting from left to right, we have our early childhood or kindergarten wing, our courtyard, followed by our cafeteria and cafeteria volume, gymnasium. Here you can start to see our stage that it does double duty to allow a presentation both in the gym and cafeteria, depending on the relationship. And then our classroom wings. So from a closer look at our core spaces, we have media center, followed by our Main Street corridor, a learning stair or communicating stair, social stair that goes down to the cafeteria. And you see our platform. Once again, to remind everybody, these will be folding partitions at each opening. So that if, say, there's an all-school assembly in the gym, we close the folding partition to the cafeteria. If there's a visiting lecturer or author that maybe has a more intimate audience, we're able to close the gymnasium partition, open the cafeteria one so that people can view them within the cafeteria, up the social stair, and then over to the media center. So a couple things, I'll go through some of our interiors fairly quickly, but we've started to, or we have developed some kind of themes to draw color inspiration from, and those show up in some of our materials. So I mentioned it earlier, the concept of the dunes, the greenway, the shore, and the water. So those are areas that we're pulling kind of common accent colors through, so identifying areas for graphic display and tackable display, as well as those pops of colors within classrooms and circulation paths. So here's a view to the main entry hall, looking down Main Street towards the media center. STEAM is kind of in the center, and our classroom corridor is to the right. This is to our cafeteria and gymnasium beyond. So this is from the corridor off of Main Street, looking down into the cafeteria. This is looking back to that learning stair from the cafeteria. We have our media center looking out to the open courtyard. This is looking back to the cafeteria from the media center. Gymnasium. So a couple quick words about where we are for construction document quality control. We've had 2 cost estimates with reconciliation. We've undergone an independent structural review, a third-party code review. We've had Gil Bain, who's the construction manager, do a constructability and coordination review, as well as Adam and his team at Colliers as OPM to perform a similar review. We've also had our commissioning agent building envelope and systems review. So all those things, we developed a 90% construction document set at the end of August. For the last 6 weeks, we've been going through that review and are currently picking up some of the final comments. So as far as our next steps, building official and fire marshal sign off, health department sign off. We will need a formal motion and approval of the construction documents and cost estimate, first from the building committee and then from the Board of Education. And then once we get all the signatures, we go to the Office of Grants Administration for a pre-bid conformance review, and that is currently scheduled for November 15th. And with that, I think I can take any questions, any comments. Hopefully I'm not muted.
You're not, you're good, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you so much, that was great to see. Do you have any questions or comments from the board? Our board members online? Questions or comments, Diane?
Oh, I just wanted to comment on a previous picture of the proposed gym. it was in the same color scheme as the rest of the school with the, beach sort of hues. And I would like to propose that because I foresee the gym being used in other instances than just for that particular, the students in that particular building, that perhaps it should be a black and gold, tiger hand sort of Madison Public School District colors.
And I think Dr. Cook had also, I'm sorry, can I respond or, okay. I
Yes,
believe, okay, I believe Dr. Cook made a very similar one that just simply hasn't been incorporated yet into these interior renderings. So I will pass that.
I love the idea myself. I don't want to take credit for it. It was actually Diane had passed that on to me and I had passed it on to you. So Diane gets credit for it twice.
Great, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Christine, I see you unmuted. Did you want to comment?
Oh, no, I'm just taking it all in. Thanks.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is, as I mentioned, in November, we'll be coming back with to this group for the formal approval as we did with the phase 1 package. So we'll be submitting documents to the board in advance of that, but just with regard to what the ask is, as with phase 1, the school building committee gets into the nitty-gritty on details and approvals of, does this wall look this way or that way, or things of that nature. The intent of the Board of Education approval is not that you're responsible for going through all the drawings and checking off every portion of the building. It's that the programmatic intent, the teaching intent, learning in space aligns with the education specifications and the overall educational vision of the building. So when you see a bunch of documents flying around, it's not that we're asking you to go through and look at every single one. It's that's the intent of the approval that will be coming back in November.
I actually did have a question, if I could.
Please.
In terms of the cafeteria and the tables, are the chairs attached to the table? And I'm just wondering about handicap accessibility with that.
So I can answer that. Typically, the chairs are attached as part of the table assembly. And that's something that we'll go through in a process that's called FF&E, or furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Yep.
We are required to provide universal access. So every couple of tables, there will be seats that are not included. So if there's a ring of 8 seats on a conventional table, each table will have an area that a student in a wheelchair will be able to sit at the table.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question in that regard also. Will there be ramps? Are there ramps from one level to the other?
There is an elevator that goes from one level to the other one. There is not,
elevator?
there's a, yeah, there's an elevator. We typically do not provide a ramp from the 14 feet from the main level to the lower level.
And only on one elevator,
Yes,
but you mean as far as handicap accessibility, that'll all be covered with the help, with the specs with the help.
That's
Yes.
part of the use that I
Because,
there is a ramp from the main level up to the stage, for example. I think that's the one ramp within the building.
that's the,
Because it's not-
there's no ramp accessibility for, say, wheelchairs.
From up to those stages, there will be, but from floor to
Yeah,
floor.
but not-
by
floor to floor.
correct.
I was just gonna comment, the student activity workbooks that you have here in the presentation. It would be really neat if there was some way to include some of them in the school. In the hallways, or like these comments and pictures that kids drew. I don't, and you have such a great team. I'm sure they've already thought of that, but it'd be neat to see some of this in the building along the hallways or something, because it's cute to hear their voices and then see them in the big building, so. Just a
that's cool. It's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, that's great. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Next item we had under the superintendent's report will be covered under the finance committee, so it probably is more appropriate to cover the budget assumptions and calendar there, but I did want to share that the administration is working on both and presented that to the finance committee tonight, so that have it repeated later, so that makes sense. That completes my report.
Thank you. Any board member comment at this time? No? All right, do we have any audience response to the information presented in person or online? If you'd like to speak, just raise your hand if you're online. No one? Okay. Let's move along to board committees and liaison updates. Our first one is curriculum and student development with Steve.
We have not met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is November 14th.
Thank you. Next is facilities committee. I will give a quick report on the facilities committee. We had a special meeting yesterday to review an updated and revised CIP that we will be taking action on this evening. Is it best that I give a report on that now, do you think?
So
Okay. So you should have in front of you or in your packets a revised CIP draft revision date October 17th. The only change that you see in front of you, and jump in, Craig, if I miss anything here, is to one particular line, which is in Brown School. So the background of this is that there were some concerns with our year one total figure in terms of some cash flow concerns in year one in particular. So Dr. Cook and Bill and Stacy met to think about how we could reduce year one expenses, and the place they landed was in the Brown School. It's BS 002. That's FF&E move management. And they felt comfortable removing about $391,000 from that line, in particular from Brown School cafeteria furniture. So leave some in place there. There was consideration of moving furniture from the other schools' cafeteria furniture from Jeffrey and Ryerson when possible. As you all, I'm sure know, the Brown School cafeteria has sort of two different areas, so that one area could have the older furniture for bigger kids, and the other area could have the new or borrowed furniture from the other schools. So this was something that they considered, they felt comfortable with, to get the CIP to a number that the town felt more comfortable with as well. So the facilities committee moved this through to the board tonight for action, and we can certainly entertain any questions or discussion at this time. Anything you want to add to that, Craig?
No, well, I think you covered it. I just would say, again, if we achieve this, this is one of the highest CIPs probably ever. You know, we typically have gotten a little bit over $1 million, so we'd be getting, you know, about $5.5 million in significant projects would be completed at Brown. You know, there's no easy decisions here. The cafeteria furniture, we felt we could continue to utilize some older furniture. It's not ideal. I don't want to make this sound like it's an easy reduction, because one, the cafeteria at Brown is very visible when you first walk in. It's one of the first places families see. It is used for other meetings too with adults frequently. So we'd be utilizing some older furniture, but I think this is something we can look at a year from now or something. You know, it's difficult too, just seeing the new school, and that's all new furniture, obviously. But I think that this is something that is important for us to do, and recognize that the town is also holding off on a number of projects in their area, and most of the things that they're moving forward would be things that they're anticipating a grant would help either supplement or pay for. And so if they don't get that grant, their project would not move forward. So I think the town's been very generous working with us and, trying to address, the hand HVAC issue and then the Brown move and bringing Brown up to, kind of, as much similarity to the new building as possible.
I just have a quick thing. I just thought of this. So you know how we just purchased, like recently, the new tables with the flipping bench design at hand for the cafeteria? So they're like pretty new, but they're really not, to be quite frank, adult sized, because the seat depth is like 12 inches, which is really not a standard depth for like adults. We should move that into Brown and bring back the old tables that everyone at hand liked.
Thank you for that suggestion, Diane. Any other comments or questions? Yes,
Part of the conversation in the facility meeting was, we're trying to be responsive to what the town is asking for to bring the budget online. That being said, the expectation isn't that these provisions disappear. We're hoping that a year out, as the superintendent said, with a combination of grants and other funding mechanisms, that these things can be replaced, beyond next year's budget.
any questions or comments from the folks online?
Just to point out, there's an action item on this later.
Yes. Yes, we'll be taking action on this evening.
Thank you.
Okay,
The only thing that I would add is the concept of potentially submitting a letter along with, if we were to vote in favor of this, we could submit a letter from the Board of Education that just kind of puts a placeholder on what we had to forgo in this round, and that we were hoping and looking for alternate funding sources like Steve mentioned, and that the superintendent mentioned, to try and get them covered later, or to get that line covered later.
yeah, thank you.
And there was some interest in Seth and my conversation with the first select woman, that there was some interest potentially in that. And that would be one avenue to potentially get the project funded. That we would put forward the need, and if there was additional funding, say from a project that came in under bid, or there is additional funding from the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance, that we could look at those items. That was promising.
Well, that's the end of my report then. Thank you. Finance Committee, Galen.
All right, thank you, Emily. The Finance Committee met tonight at 5:30. We covered 3 basic items. We discussed the budget calendar, budget guidelines, and the possible use of end of year funds. In terms of I think you have this information in your packet, but in terms of the calendar, the dates are pretty much the same. We're entering the thick of the season. We're hoping to approve the calendar and guidelines tonight as an action item. But I'll just toss out a couple. There's going to be the admin council will have a budget retreat on December 6th. We, as a board, will have some budget presentations and workshops with the new year, January 9th and 16th. The other dates are as indicated in your packet. So we haven't quite got to the nitty gritty yet, but we're getting there. In terms of the guidelines, we also have a document that will be posted online. I think you have in your packet as well. And so I'll just review that briefly. So in terms of the annual operating budget guidelines, that doesn't vary really much from year to year. It's just we want to realize savings in health insurance and shared services and things like that. The Board of Ed priorities emerged from the retreat of a few weeks ago. And they are as follows: provide students with the opportunity to demonstrate knowledge and testing platforms of test familiarity, inclusive of advanced placement. So a couple of years ago, I think last year, the board authorized 30,000. 15,000, thank you. To help with AP teaching and guidance. The second was to create a budget that reflects reasonable expectations associated with programmatic. So that's from last year. Now we've added the building impact of closing 3 schools, building a new school, and reorganization of Brown School for July of 2025. Another item that emerged from the retreat was to provide ongoing supports for the delivery of high quality social, emotional, and academic intervention programs. And then the last was to consider expansion needs of the pre-K program for 2025 based on the new legislation and needs of younger learners. The third category represents the admin council's operating budget objectives, and they shift according to circumstances. The first one being to prepare for the end of ESSER funding on June 30th, 2024, and incorporate positions into the operating budget. And the second would be to prepare for the possibility that we do not get a waiver for the reading program and have to use the approved big box materials, and that could be quite substantial, up to $800,000 initially. So I think it's prudent to prepare for that contingency. The third objective would be to address priorities in the curriculum cycle, which was paused and has been restarted. Next, to continue the support of technology obsolescence replacement plan and to support security related projects. And then finally, very importantly, dear to Bill's heart, to continue to respond to planning cycle maintenance needs and to fund repairs and maintenance. So those were that's the budget guideline. The last item on the agenda was to take possible action on the request for end of year funds. So it looks like we finished $227,000 under budget, which we normally return to the town. Dr. Cook wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss alternative uses for this. The consensus in the committee was to return that to the special education reserve fund, which is currently at $350, but with changes in legislation and higher costs, the goal is to bump it to perhaps $550,000. Another suggested use would have been furniture for Brown. We didn't make a determination, but the consensus again seemed to be for special ed. And there were no public comments, and we adjourned it at 5:55.
Any questions or comments for Galen?
Galen, what's the last thing you said about the furniture? Can you talk about that discussion a little bit more?
Yeah, so the question was, what do we do with the I would call it excess, but the $227,000? And there are a number of uses. One of them would be for furniture at Brown, I think for the cafeteria. Right?
What?
Yes, yeah. And there was one other use, I can't recall.
So the money goes back, so doing nothing. There's
So nothing goes back to the town.
Right, it goes back to the town. We have to ask for it back. We, have to work with both boards, finance and board of selectmen to put money into the reserve account. We can't just put it in ourselves. That's the state mechanism for that. So the plan would be to, after, and the district's done this a number of times, we did as recently as last year. As soon as everything is audited, we'd ask for the money back. And so we have to go to both boards and explain it. And so like I said, we did it just last year. I think put it into the special ed reserve account protects us against the new legislation that will surely cost us $128,000 at least, and potentially any other volatility in that account. Now we do try and make up any volatility in that account during that current budget year to not dip into that fund, but this is our way to have some protection against that.
Yeah, thank you. I should also add that as Dr. Cook mentioned, we know that we're going to spend another $128,000 because special ed was extended to age 21, an extra, what, 9 months?
Yeah, it's the end of the year for when you turn age 22, it's the end of that school year now.
Right. And then Stacy Novitz, of course, was in the meeting, and she noted that we don't have to decide what to do with the end of year funds yet. Still pending an outside audit, so we do have a little bit of time. Just wanted to bring that up. So the two motions that we did pass and would like to forward to the full board would be to accept both the calendar and budget guidelines. In fact, I think they're folded into one, for the action item.
I would just like to make a suggestion that we take, about $13,000 from the 227 and just make sure that we have paper towels in the schools.
Okay.
And that is on the agenda for our next regular facilities committee meeting,
So we just have just the calendar.
just
not
the calendar.
Just the calendar, not the guidelines tonight.
So I actually had a question. I'm wondering per state statute, is it 2% of monies that you don't spend on your budget? Are you allowed to get that money back, no questions asked? And do you know?
Yes, it's 2% of the entire budget.
Okay.
So you're able to carry over
Right.
that. If you do have to have the process, we would have to have the town's approval. We couldn't just put it in directly.
Okay. So then would there be a question about the 2% then if we were to,
The town could say no, but they've been very gracious in working with us and certainly my time, and there's history of it happening before my time. So I believe it'd be with this rationale, I think it'd be looked upon favorably.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All set, thanks.
All right, thank you, Damon. Next, we have the personnel committee. Maureen,
The personnel committee hasn't met since our last meeting. We don't have that.
thank you. Policy committee, Diane.
Policy committee met tonight. We went through about 20 policies. You'll be seeing a bunch of them at the next meeting, some for action and some as a first read. Some of those included the 9,000 series. We're trying to finish up that, as well as 5,000 series. The 5,000 series is the student policies. We did get a bunch of policies that we had to review because of new state statutes or guidelines or public acts that were passed. So we're sort of treading water a little bit and also making a little progress. On your, we have exhibits tonight that are up for action items. We have policies for rescission, second reading, and those are all in the 9,000 series. You'll see it in your packet along with the Shipman and Goodwin notes and explanations. The 9,000 series does require a 2/3 vote in order to pass, just a side note. And also we have policies for review for rescind and replace as a second reading tonight. You'll see those in your packet. So available to answer any questions if you have for any of the policies that are action items tonight. And also in the meeting tonight, we did more discussion and work on policy 9710, school district logo and or motto. And we've made a little headway, but it's going to go back through committee and come back again. We just need some more wordsmithing on that. And we did bring up policy 5030.2 that it's we haven't lost sight of it. We do still have to revise it, and we're waiting for some guidance from Shipman and Goodwin. And that's it. And we ended early. End of report.
Thank you, Diane. Any questions or comments for Diane and the policy committee? Okay, thank you. Next we have Learn Liaison, Mary Ann.
Hi, yes, we met on Thursday. It was actually an excellent meeting. We met with, Lisa Dean came from Demand Zero.
Oh, yeah.
And they are having a liaison that I know the school, TJ was trying to get done, but they can't do it because they have testing that day. And it's really sad because it was gonna be, it's gonna be great. And so I'm just gonna hand it out to all of you so you can see what maybe next year we can have done or but they're gonna have students, they have a They have a rapper that's going to be there and you all for Benno. And she does an excellent job and she spoke to all the other members of the boards on Learn. So at least she got her message out. It was very good. And we also had oh yeah.
Yeah.
A superintendent, I do have a superintendent from Preston who did an excellent presentation. His name is Dr. Roy Sightsinger. Do you know him?
Yes.
He is excellent. He put together a PowerPoint presentation that was wonderful about how they manage his school and their philosophy, and it was just so beautiful. It was actually a beautiful presentation. So if anybody's interested in that, I can send you the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds neat.
yeah. I mean, it was very good. I think that's the best part of being on Learn is they get to meet not only other board members, from other school boards, but you get to meet superintendents and their different perspectives. They're all wonderful. No, it's great.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Ann. Any questions or comments for Mary Ann? Sounds like a perfect meeting. Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda is a discussion about the possible renaming of Brown School. So this has come up at a couple of previous meetings, and I know that we were trying to gather some information. So Dr. Cook, do you want to give us an overview of this item here?
Yes, we were able to find some information. You know, there's some great history just out there, and it, you know, it's oftentimes hard to find or piece together for us. But Zoe was able to find 2 documents related to a Brown School, and there was consideration when over 20 years ago, when the new current Daniel Hand was built, there was discussion of would the name of Brown School move to the current Polson. And so a committee considered that. The superintendent at the time, Kate Griffin, had worked with that committee, and they decided not to move that because Dr. Brown taught in the actual building that is named after him now. And at that time as well, the district had received a letter from Dr. Brown's daughter, who lives in New Jersey, I believe, or Pennsylvania. And she just talked about like how important it was, and that you know, she supported, you know, a school. She didn't necessarily say it needed to be the current one, but a school being named after Dr. Brown. So it was a nice connection. We've done some other research just basically on, you know, how Cobb School became Jeffrey through a committee, and Ryerson used to be High Hill. And so there was, you know, different, usually schools started off as a street or a location type, but were named after somebody through time. So, you know, I do, you know, I shared that, and I've been asked my recommendation a couple times on this. And the more I think about it, I think it's, in my opinion, it's best to leave it as Brown School in its current location. One of the items that we talked about tonight, I think that we often forget, is that it's difficult for families and citizens of the town. They constantly refer, it'll always be Brown School for so many people, and it takes so long for the you know, kind of naming to change, even if we name it something else. So you know, I think that I talked to a few staff members who, you know, feel attached to the name as well. So I think that you know, that would be my recommendation, but you know, ultimately it's the board's decision if they wanted to turn it over to a committee to consider and make a recommendation back.
Thank you. Discussion time, comments. What do people think?
I agree.
You agree with what Dr. Cook said? Okay,
You know, I think when a building is honored for somebody, it shouldn't have the life of people's respective memories. You know, 20 years pass and people forget who that person was. But, you know, the community at that point in time said, this is a person that deserves to be honored. And we ought to respect that.
I appreciate that.
The only thing I think about that is that it would be harder to name the new school anything but someone's name. And then I think that there's this big discussion of, well, it should be Ryerson or it should be Jeffrey because both of those schools are sort of going away. And I would hate to see like one of them chosen over the other. I think it'd be nicer if they were both given like a major part of a facility, but then you would still need a name for the new school. And so my personal preference would be to lean to like a South Madison Elementary School and a North Madison Elementary School, and thus renaming Brown, and then take the Brown name, the Jeffrey name, the Ryerson name to all major components so that everybody's still honored, but you get that sort of similarity between the two new elementary schools.
Thank you.
Except that we did have Academy was Academy, and we did have Island Avenue. So we didn't necessarily name every school for a person.
Academy was Hand Academy, named after Daniel Hand.
But
Oh, I didn't know that.
Island, I didn't know it. But
I thought there was a
Island
special circumstance around using Hand though, because they
There was a
Donated.
covenant. Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a covenant.
like going forward, it always has to be Hand, something to do with, I don't know the details of it, but that was my understanding, was that it always has to be Hand because of what they gave to the town or whatever.
I think it's probably worthwhile to have a committee gather to look at all of these different pieces and have a conversation about it. I see what your point is, Dr. Cook, and when you spoke, I agreed with you, and then Diane spoke and I agreed with her. I just think there's too many pieces and to make a quick decision. And all of those things should be looked at because we don't really know the history of Academy and all of the different names. And the committee might come to that conclusion, but I don't see any harm in doing our due diligence.
I agree with you, Maureen. I think it should be up to a committee that has, you know, all the stakeholders represented so that it's not just, you know, one part, you know, just the relatives of the person who was named or just the current personnel that work there. Like all the stakeholders, I think, of the community should weigh in on how they feel about it. And we can take it from there. And I think the only way to do that is to have a committee. Having a committee doesn't mean that we're going to change the name. I think having the committee puts it out there to find out what the stakeholders want, and then we go from there.
Craig, can I ask, in either case, the idea would be we would continue with the naming committee for the new school and name the new school because we have a time limitation there. And then we could take the next 2 years to study changing a name of an existing named school. Is that correct? I mean, I'm not suggesting we should take that long, but I'm just saying that there's more time to impanel a committee if that were the direction we were to go in.
Yes, one option would be to wait to see what the committee returns that's currently out there. And then the board could consider that if it's, you know, so that's absolutely an option.
It could also be like an ad hoc committee of the Board of Education if we chose to go down that road. Not that I necessarily agree with that, but. Okay.
Oh, we have time.
I think my personal opinion is, I agree with what Dr. Cook said and what you both said about the building is staying the same. It's not moving. It's the building that Dr. Brown worked in. It will stay there. It will have the same age students plus some in that building. The purpose of that building is not changing at all. So it seems sort of, I don't know, that we're taking away, like you said, Stephen, that honor that was given to Dr. Brown, and the building is still there. I do agree with the sentiments of keeping Jeffrey and Ryerson in some way. And we've talked about this in previous meetings, a media center, a playground, honoring those individuals appropriately in the buildings. But I also feel like to me, it feels worse to take the name away from Brown when nothing really about it is really changing all that much. So that's just my personal opinion, but we don't need to make a decision right now, but that's sort of my thought process. So. But it sounds like you might want to continue this discussion a little bit more. Is that the consensus?
I mean, do we want to keep discussing whether we're going to impanel an ad hoc committee? Or whether we personally think that the name should stay as it is or not? Because, I mean, my feeling is if we have differing opinions on the board, it might just make sense to impanel a committee. And it may be that the committee decides that the best thing to do, I'm sorry, my dog is barking. The best thing to do is to keep the name the same to honor history, for example. So
I agree with that, yeah.
I just have a question. When does the committee have to come up with a name for the new school? What's that deadline?
The committee would make a recommendation to the board in January, and the plan right now is for the board to vote in February.
Thank you.
to appoint them.
But the concept is that the recommendation will consist of several names and not just one.
Yeah, so the committee would give 3 to 5 names.
I feel like it's like a not necessary thing to rename Graham at this point. Just like you said, it's a school that's already there. It's just we're making it a little bit bigger, a little bit better. But we're not tearing it down. We're not taking anything away. And it was named after a person. And I think it should stay. So I don't know what a committee would do. I just think we don't need a committee to hash over it. I mean, that's my personal opinion.
I feel like out of the 9 board members, like 3 have weighed in saying we think a committee is a good idea to figure it out. And 3 have weighed in saying, I think it should stay the same. So we've got 3 that we haven't really heard from, but I'm wondering then it's already split in half. I don't know, I kind of feel like what Seth said, if we're so divided on it, probably the community would be too. So to explore whether or not we should change it is not saying that we're going to change it. We're just saying, should we?
Yeah, I'm happy to give my opinion. I know I was quiet with it. I feel as though we're not changing it, so I side with keeping it the way it is, the name. If just my opinion.
And I've been quietly sitting here, but I also agree. I think Brown should stay the same.
Oh, man.
I'm not making a statement that it should or shouldn't be changed. I'm just thinking it should be discussed by a committee. And take a little bit of a deeper dive.
My personal opinion is that we should keep it the same, but we could bring it to a vote whether or not we should have a committee. So I think we should take care of business first by renaming the new school. And then in a future agenda item, have a board vote on whether or not to name a committee to do this.
That's a great idea.
That's reasonable.
The folks online amenable to that plan, so that we will let the new school building committee come up with the naming committee present, and then we can revisit this after that in February perhaps, and decide if we want to create a new committee to do this work again. Does that sound okay?
That's great.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. To be continued at a later. We'll have this back here.
I don't think we need to go back.
But, right, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Zoe's done some perfect research.
Yes.
It might be able to change your mind.
Okay, thank you. All right, we now have an action item. Do I have a motion to approve the 2024-2025 budget calendar?
So
Kathy, do I have a second? Second. Carrie Ann, do we have any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries 9-0. Thank you. All right, our next action item is a motion. Do I have a motion to rescind the following policies? 9220.6 board candidates, 9500 school board meetings, 9540.4 rules of order, 9400 organization of the school board, 9410 board organizational meeting.
So moved.
Galen? Second, Maureen, any discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, do I have a motion to approve the following policies? 1370 non-discrimination, 4118.1 non-discrimination, 5020.1 non-discrimination, 4030.5 FMLA, 4160 student activity / transportation vehicles, 4111.1 security check / fingerprinting, 4112.8 / 4212.8 nepotism.
So moved.
Even, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kathy? Any discussion?
Yes. Diane does a lot of heavy lifting, Maureen does a great job, there's just a lot to go through, so just wanted to put that out there.
I just wanted to say also that we meant to, so I'd like to make an amendment to it because the 4112.8 / 4212.8 nepotism, that number / another number is a carryover from a long time ago. And so we don't actually need to have both numbers. So I would like to amend it to remove the 4212.8 and just keep it at the 4112.8. Is that right, Zoe?
Think so.
She's
Okay.
checking.
And I also just wanted to make a note that if you notice, there were 3 policies that were all called non-discrimination. However, they're in different series. So the 1370s in the community series and the 4118.1 is in the personnel series and the 5020.1 non-discrimination is in the student series. So they are different policies because of who they affect. And I just wanted to make note of that. So, but I would like to make a motion to amend it to be 4112.8.
Diane, we
Second.
actually picked 4114.
Oh, 4114, that's what we wanted?
Yep. And that's
Okay.
reflected in the policy within the packet.
Okay, thank you. All right, so change that to amend the policy to be 4114 nepotism.
I second that.
Thank you.
So a motion to amend by Diane, second by Seth. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion carries. Good. Thank you. Our next action item 12.
Wait, I'm sorry. We
Hold on, I think
amended
you
it.
need, yeah, you have
We
to
amended it. Now we
do a
have to
motion.
vote on it.
Now we have to
Yeah.
vote on
Yeah.
it. Sorry,
Yep.
correct.
Yep.
So I'll
Okay.
move the passage of those motions as amended.
I'll second.
Seth and Diane, all right, any discussion? On favor,
Aye.
opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Again, thank you. All right, action item 12. Do I have a motion to approve the revised capital improvement program?
So moved.
So moved.
Galen?
Good, thank you. I'll second it.
Okay, Galen, you wanna, Seth, you're gonna make that motion, Galen's gonna second it.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any discussion? I would just say thank you for bearing with us through this process. And thank you to Bill and Craig and Stacy for all the back and forth, and work that they've done on this. So thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Action item 13, do I have a motion to approve a donation from the Daniel Han High School Boys Basketball Boosters in the amount of $7,000 to the Daniel Han High School basketball program for a basketball shooting machine.
So moved.
Kathy? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we have any special privileges as board members?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
No, is this replacing players?
That was my question. What is a basketball shooting machine?
So you'll probably get one for your house. It just won't be as elaborate eventually, but it's basically a rebounder. So you shoot it rebounds for you and it shoots the basketball back to you.
Oh, you put it like under the net?
Under the net, yeah, it's an automated
Oh,
machine.
just because it's, all right.
Well,
Not
that's
too
good.
hard though. 'cause
We used to have somebody do that manually, but times were different.
Now it's.
Can we recruit a shooting machine?
Yeah, that's next time. Wait,
Oh, Thank you to the boosters for that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's.
yes, thank you.
Lovely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
We got to vote.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Our next action item, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 3rd, 2023 Board of Education meeting?
So moving.
Second,
Okay, Galen, Stephen? Any discussion?
I thought there was one thing on it. Hang on. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Nope, there was one. Under item 12, it should say changes from an intermediate school instead of and. That's it.
Changes from and to an.
Yeah.
Okay, noted. Thank you, Diane. All right, all in favor with that amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, as always, keep us informed of any future agenda items.
I have one thing, just to ask, Dr. President. We used to have the Board of Selectmen, someone speak, show up for
Liaison.
their liaison. Is there a reason why we haven't this year?
You think Tuesday nights are tough for Scott Murphy, and so I can ask him. One of the, maybe the November or December meeting he could attend, it's always. helpful,
Or
but I know
maybe
he's-
another member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Board of Select-
Sure,
Just because with all the school stuff going on and everything, that
Sure.
would be nice to have.
I think youth and family services meets at the same time.
Yeah, it's-
That's the conflict.
That's very
Yeah.
involved.
That's on that too.
But
Maybe we could just have like a quarterly update or something, and so he doesn't have to come to every single meeting, or it doesn't even have to be him, it could be anybody, anybody.
Or someone else, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah. that'd be
Or,
fine.
or they could just send like a, a memo.
yeah,
Or a little statement or something.
Yeah.
that'd be-
okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Marion. Any other future agenda items? Okay. Meetings and dates of importance are attached. And do I have a motion now to adjourn the meeting? Maureen? Second. Kathy? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Right, meeting is adjourned at 8:35. Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Emily.